Yeah, absolutely. I think personally for me, I live to this day still on the impulsive side of it. I am a risk taker at my core, but I've now learned how to tame it in a way that suits me so that down the road I don't go, oh shit, I just self sabotaged myself on that decision, didn't I? But also, if somebody says, did you have a well lived life? I can truly say, yes, I did, because my decision making, the impulsivity part of it, has brought me to where I am today. So, no regrets.
Hey, friend, and thanks for coming back for yet another episode of the Entrepreneurs with ADHD series on the Driven Woman Entrepreneur podcast. The voice you just heard is my good friend and fellow ADHD coach, Cathy Rashidian. We are here today to talk about the struggles that brains like ours tend to have in the area of decision making, whether it's regretting the impulsive decision or the missed opportunity of taking too long to make a decision at all. You're going to hear so many actionable insights that you're going to be able to put to work in your business and life right away so that you can feel better about the decisions you make, both when you make them and down the road. Let's get right to it, shall we? You and I have a lot of similar thoughts about a lot of things, including being an adult with ADHD, being self-employed with ADHD, and the struggles and strengths that we have as individuals with ADHD. And one of the things that I love talking about, especially with you, is the challenges that we have making decisions that we like as much later as when we made them. So, Cathy, I've been dying to ask you this question, and I keep forgetting, thank you, ADHD, why you chose the specific name for your company, Ready, Set, Choose, because that's what we're here to talk about today. So let's start with that.
Yeah, good question. Nobody's ever asked me that, and I'm so glad you brought it up. The reason I chose that name, and talk about decision making. What do you call yourself? What do you call your company name? Blah, blah, blah. And is this the brand? And all of those things as an entrepreneur when you're deciding. It wasn't till I took my first certification in coaching through IPEC that I learned about making conscious choices. And that's when the plane landed for me. So the idea of ready, set, choose is when we are in the state of awareness, we know what's going on. We're seeing things. We're like, oh, now this is clicking. The ADHD late in life diagnosis all of a sudden clicked a whole lot of things for me. I was ready. So it's awareness equals you're ready for the next step. And then it's the great, now that I'm ready, do I want to accept this for what it is? So you go
Hmm.
through this phase of acceptance, right? So you're getting yourself set up, right, to make the choices. So in that phase of acceptance of what is, oh, this is my brain wiring. It has always been that way. There's no such thing as adult onset ADHD. That I've just was at the right place at the right time doing the right things. So I just chugged along. So then I'm setting myself up for what's next. And
Hmm.
the next is choosing, but choosing from a place of conscious choice, from a place of, I know what's happening, I'm accepting for what is, now consciously choosing from a place of purpose, from a place of informed decision, not from a place of analysis paralysis, but from a place of truly standing in my own power, so that when I say to my loved ones, I am ready to become an entrepreneur, and they're like, what the F are you thinking? Well, here's 20 ways from Sunday why I think this is going to be great for me, and sticking with it and not allowing them to inject their own life experiences and their own fears into that decision. So, Ready, Set, Choose came from that of awareness, acceptance, conscious choice.
I knew you'd have a superb answer, and you did not disappoint. You are one of my very favorite thought partners as a fellow woman with ADHD, later in life diagnosis, track record of success before you knew you had ADHD, and now choosing to use your gifts and talents to help other people with their ADHD. And something that I think about all the time because of how ADHD affects our executive functions. And it's like the command control center of our brain, if there's any impairment there, and we know there is, otherwise we wouldn't qualify for the diagnosis, one of the areas that it profoundly impacts us is decision making. And I'm talking everything from should I eat the carrot or the cookie?
Yeah.
We all know the right answer, right? But what do I want to do with my life? And is it time to change careers? Or do I really have what it takes to be an entrepreneur? Or do I want a second date with this person? I mean, there are literally hundreds of thousands of decisions we all have to make. Some of them have minor consequences, some of them have major consequences. But when you have impairment in your executive functions, a lot of your decisions don't play well over time.
Yeah. Do you want me to expand on that?
Well, I mean, we have so much we can unpack about this, but one of the things I wanted to talk about with you today on this is that in my observation, people with ADHD kind of tend to skew towards one end of the decision making spectrum or the other. And on one end is impulsive decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Impulsive decisions that are not well thought out. There's not a plan. It's reactive, not proactive. It isn't really thought through. We might not know what we're getting into. And trust me, I have many, many impulsive and probably regrettable decisions in my life. And then you go all the way to the other side of the spectrum, and you tend to have a lot more overthinking, procrastinating, analysis paralysis. And even once the decision is finally painfully made, there's a lot of doubt about whether it's the right decision. So, like more research, second guessing,
Mm-hmm.
self doubting. Those are both impaired states of decision making, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think personally for me, I live to this day still on the impulsive side of it. I am a risk taker at my core, but I've now learned how to tame it in a way that suits me so that down the road I don't go, oh shit, I just self sabotaged myself on that decision, didn't I? But also, if somebody says, did you have a well lived life? I can truly say, yes, I did, because my decision making, the impulsivity part of it, has brought me to where I am today. So, no regrets.
No, I also embrace the no regrets philosophy because, in truth, whatever I'm regretting is in the past.
Hmm.
And I know we're going to talk about, past, present, future focus, but whatever I'm regretting is in the past. The past has already happened. I have no time machine. I have no time travel capacities. I can't go back and make things any different than they were. So any amount of energy, effort, emotion I expend on regretting it, doubting it, feeling guilty about it, feeling ashamed about it, wishing it were different, beating myself up for doing it, colossal waste of time. But like you, I tend to be more impulsive. And I got to tell you something my daughter mentioned. She is more on the inattentive, distractible type,
Hmm.
and I am combined type. So I've got a lot more features of impulsivity. She mentioned to me recently, Mom, I think you're having a lot more fun with ADHD than I am.
Oh,
And at first I was like, it hurt my mother's heart. But I really started thinking, why did she say that? And of course, we talked further, and I realized it's because I am more impulsive.
yeah.
I take more risks. I make more decisions. I am much more prone to act instead of thinking too much. And she associates that with fun because here's my theory. I'd love to hear yours. I think because I'm more prone to action and impulsive, non impulsive, I'm making more decisions. I'm executing more things. I've become more resilient, and I've learned how to laugh at myself. I've learned how to see like the humor in some of the decisions that I've made. And so I think she's right. I think the impulsivity and the resiliency that I've developed because of it, I think I am having more fun, certainly than the people I know who literally are paralyzed by every decision and have to do an enormous amount of research. And even once they decide, they're like, oh, but is it the right thing? I'd love to know what you think about that.
Yeah, and I think it's that what you said about kind of living in the past, living in the future. And if we were to talk about a little bit more about both types of the impulsive or the inattentive, the overthinker, they each serve a purpose, I think. The overthinker that sits there and goes, I need to think about this in 20 ways from Sunday, what actually is happening is they're stimulating themselves with dreamland. And their brain goes, this is so much fun. Keep dreaming it up, and this way and that way. And they're getting the dopamine hit. And it does
Mm.
make it interesting for them. But what it's doing is now your ADHD is in the driver's seat, going on this drive down the highway
To
without
nowhere.
any to nowhere, right? But look at the scenery. Oh, it's so beautiful over here.
Mm.
We could stop and have a picnic, but oh, let me give you some more. Let's go over there. And so you never stop to be present to experience all of those beautiful little thoughts that you had along the way of the journey. And with impulsivity, I think it's, oh, let us pull over and see what happens. And then, oh, let us pull over there and see what happens. Oh, let's pick up a stranger, perfect stranger, because they need help.
What could happen?
Let's go do that too. So then you're delayed into getting to your destination. So either way, your brain is in control. And it's you're getting the dopamine hit. It is meeting your basic needs of an ADHD person that says, I need interest, I need novelty. It's hitting all the marks. But is it strategically hitting all the marks? Which for me
Mm.
then goes, you're going from creating accidental success, which I did most of my career, to now I'm creating intentional success, where I'm thoughtfully doing it a little bit. Let me be impulsive. Let me be an overthinker. So, and it goes back to yesterday, we were talking about this, I think, in another conversation about finding your golden mean of how do you use this brain so that it works for
Mm.
you, so that you don't overdo it and, kind of extend yourself from one side of the extreme to the other side. So what you brought up, that was it for me, is understanding how our brain truly works, and when is it in the driver's seat versus us in the driver's seat. And we can talk about so much more.
Well, I love your perspective around it's all about the dope. Like
Yeah.
whatever we do and however we do it, whether it's acting on impulse and like, woo, like it's like what I call the fuck around and find out philosophy of
Yeah.
life. Like, well,
Love
let's see what can
that.
happen, you know? And sometimes you're like, oh, geez. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard myself say, wow, I didn't see this coming. Well,
Yep.
you're the only one that didn't. But then I'm doing that because I'm getting dopamine from it. I'm indulging my curiosity. I'm indulging my interest. I'm indulging, wanting to explore, wanting to have an adventure, wanting to try something new. That's dopamine seeking behavior. And so is research that becomes a rabbit hole. That's how they get their dope. This is how I get mine. But that is what drives us. So if you can understand that about yourself, I always say know who you are and know how you are.
Hmm.
And if you can like peel the shame and the
Hmm.
self consciousness and the guilt and the comparing yourself to neurotypicals and all that and go, okay, am I satisfied with the quality of dope I'm getting? Is this like high quality dope or am I settling for like the
Good
lowest?
one.
And could I get as much dopamine or a better quality of dopamine or more lasting dopamine or dopamine that doesn't make me feel shitty about myself later and still make a decision? Because honestly, I think most decisions don't feel bad in the moment.
Hmm.
It's how they play over time and what we make it mean that we chose what we chose.
Yeah, and it goes, so then going back to the what happened in the past and what's in the future. And I think for us, we like to have certainty. I mean, every brain live thrives on certainty. If we don't know what's going on, the brain goes in defense mode. Amygdala is hijacking your brain, and you're in emotional flood, going, "Oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen 10 days from now, or the past. Last time I did this, here's the evidence that it's going to happen again." So this beautiful meaning making machine is always, and I like what you say is like your brain is not your friend. It's
Yeah.
so true. It isn't. And here we are. So how do we do it? And for me, this mindful decision making, and I know people don't come after me with mindfulness and ADHD and all of that. I get it. But it makes sense now. And here's how it makes sense for me. If I'm about to make a decision and I'm tapping into past
Mm.
Cathy probably 7 years ago didn't know what she knows now. So if I made those decisions back then, I was making it based on the life experiences and all the influence around me based on that skill set. This Cathy today knows a lot more and
Mm,
continues to know more. So it would be actually pretty unfair to say last time we made this decision, this happened. So don't do it again. So there's one criteria. And then if I go into the future, I'm going to bring in Russell Barkley that says time blindness. Also,
mhm,
people,
mm.
it's about not having a good understanding of the future. It's not just about not knowing how to manage your time. It's not grabbing into your future self. I have clients that don't know, well, there'll be 3 years from now. And actually, that's not a good question to ask anybody with ADHD. Where do you want to be in 5 years from now? We don't know. We
I
cannot
don't know what I'm
envision.
having for dinner.
Exactly.
Shut up.
So that's exactly it, right? So to wanting to do something that actually is not aligned to your brain wiring, and this is what we talk about strength-based coaching, work with what you have. What do you know for certain right now, today, in this moment? That's where mindful decision making comes in, which then it's not about if I make this decision 10 years from now or 5 years from now, who knows? But what you know for certain is this. And to me, that's where you calm that brain from being in panic mode. And when you're not in a place of panic or stress or overwhelm, that executive functioning we talked about, you actually have more access to it versus, oh my God, what's going to happen? All of that. You're just doing yourself a disservice by tripping your brain into emotional dysregulation, which then you really don't have access to all of your brain faculty to begin with. That's what I wanted to share on that one.
You know what I'm thinking is that, you know, it's a known fact that we are probably about 10% of humanity, like neurodivergent people, which means the other white meat, 90% of everybody that surrounds us is neurotypical, which means, with few exceptions, the world we live in has been made by and for neurotypicals. And I think for me, one of the most insidious, damaging, and really disruptive things about being neurodivergent in a neurotypical world is the gradual loss of trust in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it comes to decision making, and of course, then you throw in the brain's negativity bias, where every screw up, every mistake, every regrettable that you have, your brain's like,
There it is.
I got all the flashcards. Let me just, So when you're in the moment where you're like, I have an important decision to make, or maybe not even a really important decision to make, a decision, I want to make a good decision. Now, you're already not being impulsive if you're thinking, I want to make a good decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can I make a good decision? Can I trust myself to make a good decision? Well, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So let's just go into the stacks. Let's go into the archives. Let's go into the microfiche and see what evidence there is of my past decision making. Well, your brain's going to be like, hey, what about this time? And then remember when you did that? And boy, this one's legendary. And you're still trying to live down this one. That does not help because you are on, a repeat loop of your past mistakes and failures, which over time, coupled with the fact that we're surrounded by neurotypicals who are often saying things that I personally find very triggering, like, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
Well, matter of fact, I wasn't. Or, so what's the plan here? Or
Yeah.
where is this going? Those type of questions, there's nothing wrong with those questions. But what they absolutely do in the moment is highlight the fact that we make decisions differently and how we feel about those decisions is also different. And when people are asking you, like the typical interview question, where do you want to be in 10 years? And if you're impulsive, you might blurt out, I don't know where I'm going to be in 10 minutes. Ah, ha, ha. And you're like, next.
Yeah.
When I first found out about time blindness, which I still prefer to call time optimism, because
Mm.
I always think I have more time than I do. And another friend of mine, you're going to love this, Cathy. Another friend of mine just introduced me to a new version this week. She calls it time confetti. Like, like I never know how much time I have. But this notion that we should know where we're going to be in 10 years or 5 years or 3 years or a year. You need an annual plan. You need a
Yeah.
90-day plan. A neurotypical person's time horizon, on average, 12 to 16 weeks. When I heard that,
Hmm.
I was like, first of all, oh shit, I think mine's like 12 to 16 minutes. But it like instantly realized, aha, that's how long a semester of college is, 12 to 16 weeks. That's how far ahead of time you need to submit your request for time off if you work for a big company. That's how far ahead you have to book hotels and airplanes because you get a better deal. And I instantly realized, wow, I really do have impairment in my executive functioning because of this time blindness, time optimism, time confetti. My time horizon doesn't work the same way. So, of course, my decision making is going to be impaired one way or the other, or probably both ways.
That's right. That's right. It's interesting. You're bringing up this other thought that I often practice with my clients around, and this comes from my tech days. Whenever we would work with software developers, there's a project management approach called agile project management.
Mm-hmm.
And in agile, we do things by sprints, and every sprint informs the next sprint and the next sprint. Did the product work? What do we need to modify, and so forth? So when it comes to decision making, also, I think there is a time and a place where we can just kind of chill and say, look, let me just take it one step at a time, as opposed to this need that our brain has that I need to know exactly from beginning to the end how this decision is going to unfold. Versus, and this also supports those with ADHD to tap into curiosity. So when you're going 1 week at a time, 1 quarter at a time, one from 12 weeks at a time, the brain goes, oh, this is interesting. Oh, there's novelty in this. Oh, it's going to change. It's not my forever solution. It's not my forever decision. And I think that, again, emotional dysregulation calms down, goes, okay, she has an out. There is a exit strategy if we wanted to come out of this decision. Versus, it's like the decision is made. Now it's our forever decision. Oh, shit, there. No, you go and work for another company. You can quit. You have permission to leave. You have permission to stay. You create partnerships. You can walk away whenever you want. This whole, like, this is my forever thing. Even life is not forever, people. Last time I checked. So can we just be in the moment of it?
No, it's true. I mean, I think it's this all or nothing thinking
Yeah.
that, and everyone in the ADHD community talks about this all or nothing thinking. If I can't commit to this wholeheartedly, without reservation, indefinitely, then I'm not going to do it. Do you know how boring our lives would be
Mm-hmm.
if we lived by that? I refer to that as pick and stick. And I know it's a lot of people find incredible meaning and satisfaction and security, neurotypical people, mind you, with this notion of I chose a life partner, I chose a lifestyle, kids, no kids, dogs, travel, apartment, house. Like I chose these things. I chose a career path. I chose the amount of education I need for that path. I chose like an income standard of living, church, not church. And now I'm just going to stick with it. And I'm going to deepen that commitment over time. And I'm going to draw other people into my life who have similar choices. And the goal is to just maintain this all the way to the finish line. I have known countless people who have at least attempted that and find that, I know people who they go vacation the same week or weeks of the year, every year. They go to the same resort.
Oh,
They book the same room. I know you're
I
like,
can't. I can't
kill me
even.
now. But they're neurotypical, and that creates security, predictability, and a deep sense of satisfaction. They know they're not going to be disappointed because they've already been satisfied with that thing again and again. That to me sounds like a version of hell on earth. Hey, it's Diane with a brief interruption. If you are an entrepreneur, professional, or business owner with ADHD, you do not need more tips, tricks, or hacks. What you need is high-level strategy so that you can have the stress-free successful, sustainable business you dream of. I've put together a brand new high-level guide called Mastering Your Entrepreneurial ADHD, and I'd love for you to get a copy. It'll be followed by a brief series of emails that'll tell you how to put each of the strategies in the guide to work for you in your very own business. There's a link to get yours in the show notes. Okay, let's get right back to my conversation with Cathy.
And so here's the part. I would respect that to a bit. From a decision-making perspective, and I always do this with my clients, I take a cup of water that's full, and I say, from the minute you're waking up, and what am I going to eat? And what am I going to wear? And oh my God, my kid is freaking out. And what am I going to do for her lunch? You are taking away your cognitive resources one bit at a time with every decision. So there's a time and a place where we want to kind of be efficient with our decisions,
Indeed.
where the structure and routine comes in, two words that I cannot stand, but also it's efficiency of decision. In certain things, it makes sense. But then also, it's what am I depriving of myself of if I don't have flexibility? So it's this, you go from no decision making to rigid decision making. And again, what's the happy medium? And I keep coming back to this. For those of us on the neurodivergence spectrum, we can get a little rigid in our thinking. So checking in on
No.
that so that but you know what it is too, is because we work so damn hard to make the decision. And now what? You want me, I have permission to change the decision, but I worked so hard to make it there. Yes, you have permission to modify it. Or else we wouldn't have devices like the Apple today that it is. It would still be the flip phones if they decided that that would be the permanent solution to all communication needs. Right? So talk about innovation. If you looked at it that way, there wouldn't be innovation.
No, it's true. And you're absolutely right. We're talking about decision fatigue. And you're calling it decision efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Not all decisions are created equal. Not all decisions have equal importance, deserve equal weight, deserve equal prioritization, deserve equal amounts of thought and attention and energy and effort put into making them. I personally like eliminating decisions by, like, I buy all my clothes from just two different
That's
companies.
it.
The bottoms are pretty much all the same, just different colors. The tops are all the same, different colors. People always comment, "Oh, you always look so put together." And I'm thinking, it's a freaking uniform. But it's a uniform that, like, I don't have to decide, am I going to wear a dress and heels? Or am I, and I do have a couple of dresses, but basically I have a uniform and I know that it suits my body and I know that it's minimal ironing because that's a must for me.
Yes.
And I can go look inside my closet, and if it's ironed and if none of the buttons are missing and there's no stains, the decision is like blue, white, or green. It's not, oh my God, what the fuck am I going to wear today? So I appreciate that I've reduced the cognitive load
Mm-hmm.
on my executive functions, which are challenged from the jump. And I know that, some people with ADHD, their brains are not fully charged in the morning. In fact, I would say that's the majority. They wake up with their brain not fully charged, and then they need the first few hours of the day to get all the way up to charged. I'm one of those people who wakes up with the brain fully charged, but it rapidly diminishes through the day. And
That's
by
it.
like 5, 6 o'clock, I'm basically useless. I can barely walk the dogs. So knowing that, I have to prioritize when I make my most important decisions and eliminate as many of them as possible. What I eat pretty much the same few things. What I wear pretty much the same few things. And I do this very intentionally because I've made lots and lots of, decisions that were not like that really wasted a tremendous amount of my brain capacity that could have, had I known, been put to much more meaningful decisions that it would have really moved the needle in my life. And just knowing that, like, hey, you've only got so much executive functioning, right? It's
That's
not
right.
not expansive. So how do you want to use it? Do you want to waste it? Do you want to spend it? Do you
Mm-hmm.
want to invest it? And if you want to squander a little bit, like, I still do things impulsively. I still overthink on things. I still let myself get ridiculously obsessed over trivial stuff that doesn't make any difference to anything because it's satisfying and because I've put it in check. I do not let myself spend 7 or 8 hours on TikTok because I think we all have the tendency to become obsessed and somewhat addicted. So I can't trust myself. But do I get an enormous amount of satisfaction from 20 minutes with 2 timers? You bet I do.
So good.
That's a decision I've made.
That's it. And you're consciously making that decision, going back to the original topic. And the other piece around this for me is the conscious choices that we make, whether they're fear based or purpose based. So you choosing not to be on TikTok, it doesn't align with your purpose. For me, I think the damn thing is like a brainwashing the best that they've ever made. And I don't have it on my computer. I don't have it on my phone. I don't even know if it's on the computer. But like I just refuse to. So it doesn't align with my purpose. It doesn't align with my values. It doesn't align with who I am. It won't happen. It's a done decision, right? And I think the ones that are fear based is
Mm,
the narrative behind it is I need to, I have to,
mm,
or oh my god, I'm going to miss out. So there's two criterias on this. Is when you're thinking, am I making this decision out of fear? That language comes out. The need to, the have to, the fear of missing out. But when you're going into purpose decision making, it goes with the narrative of I choose to do this right now. It's a choice I'm making. I don't have to make it, but let me make it, see what happens. You go with curiosity. You go without any judgment for yourself or what's going to happen. You go with wonder. Oh, that's such a beautiful place for us with ADHD to be in. The other one, the fear one, and it's almost like the two little people on our shoulders. Both of
mm,
them are good. Both of them will give you the satisfaction. The fear-based one has its own place and it can be just as exciting as the other one. But one is longer lasting
mm.
where the other one is short lived, the guilt, the shame, all of that will creep back in. So fear based
Absolutely.
versus purpose based.
Okay, so something I have a lot of clients ask me, and I have my thoughts about it, and I love to hear yours, is how do I know when I have a decision to make of whatever significance? How do I know when it's intuition versus maybe an influence from somewhere else or unconscious thoughts I don't realize I have? Like, how do we know when the decision that we're making is aligned with our intuition? Because I know something that you talk about, you teach, and it's part of your coach approach
Mm-hmm.
is making sure your decision lines up head, heart, and gut,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I mean, we know we have more receptors
In the gut.
in the gut than we do in the brain. So,
Yes.
like the term gut feeling, pay attention. I always like to say guts don't lie. So is it a matter of like having reliable tools and
You
strategies for
know,
checking in with the brain, the heart, and the gut? Or is there another way to know, is this my intuition or am I fooling myself or being fooled by someone else?
so I don't have statistical research and all of that to back this up, but within our neurodivergence community, there is this narrative that we are highly intuitive people. Okay, so and if there's research, people please send them my way. I'll read it.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that, one thing happens that some of us, that intuition that we have gets shushed at a very young age with, oh, that's an impulsive decision, Cathy, you're going to make. No, don't do it. Because we give the permission of decision making to others for us. So even though
Mm,
we know in our gut, in our heart of hearts that this is the thing I want to do, but society comes in, our family comes in, and for those of us that are in codependent relationships and we've given them the key to make decisions for us, they will shush that intuition. So here's that part of how do we first reignite that you do have that intuitive ability to tap into? How do you make it come alive again? And then also the framework that I learned that you were talking about, the three brains, is tap into holographic thinking. That's what it's called. Bruce Schneider came up with this, um, the author of Energy Leadership book. He calls it the holographic thinking, where you are tapping into your logical side of you, asking all the logical questions, the facts, the data, the heart side of you, what am I feeling about this? What emotions will this create? What are my beliefs? What are my knowings? And then your gut that will essentially, I feel like it's the most powerful one that goes, I think if you do this, X, Y, and Z are going to happen. Now, to do that step that we just talked about, don't do it alone. Please do not do it
Mm,
alone
mm,
because with
mm,
ADHD, you're going to get caught in rumination, catastrophization. It just is. You're doing yourself a disservice. You want to do it
mm,
with somebody that can hold space for you to ask you the questions so that you can talk it out loud and self correct as you're talking it out loud. And the other person, all they're doing is holding a flashlight, in our case, coaches, where
mm,
we're like, oh, there's a puddle here. Do you want to jump in it? Do you want to go around it? Do you want to completely avoid it and take another road? And the client will make those decisions. Well, I want to jump in it because I want to get my feet wet and I want to feel like a child again. Great. And
mm,
then you're going to go to the other side. So, really doing that with a thinking partner that knows how to hold space, doesn't give you advice, doesn't project their own life experiences onto you. Now, the intuition part, one exercise that I like to do with my clients is start looking at your day and tap into that. What would my gut say today? If I made spaghetti versus
mm,
chicken, what would happen? I think the spaghetti, the family's going to love it. What you want to start doing is keeping track of how many times that intuitive hit was on point. And
mm,
the more you're doing that, the more you're rebuilding that confidence of shit. My intuition was pretty damn good. It was on point. Here's all the new evidence I have. So it goes back to that being present with creating a log of all the new badassery versus the old stuff that came with a bunch
mm,
of gunk and it was disorganized. So
mm.
that's my thing on intuition.
No, I agree with you, Cathy. I think we are born intuitive. And I don't just think individuals with ADHD are born intuitive. I think human beings, and of
Hmm.
course, we vary in how intuitive we are, but I think we're born with that. And I think it gets systematically dismantled
Yeah.
by feedback from other people that causes us to doubt it. I think back 20 years old in college, and I didn't grow up in the kind of family where I had a lot of, support or acceptance or mentorship. So I raised myself out in the world and thought, how hard can it be? I'll figure it out. True ADHD fashion. But I do think I had a really intuitive sense of a career path that would be a good fit for my gifts and abilities and interests. That was journalism.
Mm,
And I thought, well, who am I to know what I want to do? I'm just a kid. I'm just 20. I don't know my ass from my elbow. So, of course, I asked the guidance counselor who says, you don't want to do that, and gives me a few reasons why, probably a projection of his own
yep.
experiences or opinions. And I just felt totally crushed. But the person I was at 20 was like, well, he's a grown up. He's an expert. I mean, he's a guidance counselor. He must know better. So I guess I'll go in another direction. And it took me many years to realize I knew exactly who I was. I knew exactly what I wanted. And I had an intuitive sense of what direction would be really well suited to me. And it wasn't until I launched this podcast, in fact, 4 years ago, that I was able to come back and kind of reclaim some of that interest in
Hmm.
storytelling and broadcasting and interviewing and all of that. So I think for me, and of course, that's a little bit of a wistful story, and thank you for indulging me on it. But I think, I think the more we can really get to know ourselves, really develop our self awareness in collaboration with our self acceptance and begin to unlearn the things that we have been taught to think about ourselves, we can eventually uncover our intuition. And then when we can slow our roll when we're feeling impulsive, and we can speed up a little bit when we're indulging too much, second guessing and overthinking, I think we can feel much better about the decisions we make. This is not an easy thing, I understand.
Yeah. It's the unlearning part, right? It takes time. You got to hear first, however old you are, doing certain things and living a certain way. But I also think on the other side of it now, today, right now, there's certain decisions that I've made in my life that 10 years ago I would have like not made those decisions now.
Mm.
Right? But now I'm like, oh, it has its benefits. It has its moments where some of that impulsivity is now tamed. So I'm strategically, truly decision making at a level that I can still be impulsive and not overthink. There's times where I overthink something I want to launch on YouTube and I've been overthinking it for 6 months. It's
Mhm.
like is certain things I'll do that. And to catch ourselves so that there's not this the doubt, the oh my God, but what if? And the more we intentionally step into these thought processes so that ADHD doesn't get to be in the driver's seat, I think that to me that's the secret formula is it
Mm.
my ADHD that's driving the decision, or is it truly me with all of my amazing knowing that I have and all the life experiences that I've had over the years?
Mm. And the reality, and you've alluded to this several times, no matter how much we know, no matter how much we have developed our ADHD self awareness, self acceptance, we know our triggers, we know what environments help us thrive and which ones we need to avoid. We've developed all these tools and use them regularly. The reality is that we will still choose to make decisions that are not intentional. We will still choose
Yep.
to say, I know that it would be better if I did this, but I'm going to do this instead. And that's totally okay
Hmm.
if you disavow yourself from guilt, shame, and regret. It's like, you know what? And I've done this. I do it a lot less than I used to, but I'd be like, I'm probably going to regret this, but here we go. And that level of just like, hey, listen, I'm just going to indulge this, but I'm not going to overindulge it.
That's
I'm
it.
going to let myself, like, if I order something that has too many calories and I'm on a diet, I'm not
Yep.
destroying myself. It's like I can make a better decision next time. I can start again tomorrow. I can grant myself grace.
Hmm.
I just think this notion that, however many bad decisions we've made, however much regret we have over our decision making style, however much we want to commit to only good decisions, you are, after all, human. It's a terminal condition that none of us can cure ourselves from. And it's perfectly okay to not be intentional with every decision every time. I mean, frankly, that sounds exhausting. I think
Yeah.
the things that we've talked about, like lining up with your three brains, pumping the brakes if you tend to make decisions too quickly, speeding things up a little bit if you tend to draw them out,
Hmm.
and giving yourself the gift of a thought partner to help you think some of this through. But you're still going to make some decisions that later you go, yeah, probably wasn't so good, but I'm
But
good
it
with
was an
me.
experience. Yeah,
Yes.
you learn something new about yourself. And
Or you reminded yourself of
that's
something
right.
you
Like,
already knew,
oh,
but
here
you
we
just
go
felt like
again.
doing it again.
We're not doing this again. And I've done that plenty of times. Like, God, this restaurant, why do we keep coming back here again? Because every time we say we're not going to come back and we come back again.
The car knows its way, right?
Yes, yes. As you were saying that, you reminded me of the book. And if anything, of all things, folks, the book that I would love for everybody to have their hands on and rest in peace, Barbara Sher. It's Refuse to Choose by
Yes.
Barbara Sher. She didn't
Yes.
write it for those of us with ADHD, but when you read it, you're like, oh my God, did she know about ADHD? Did she write this for us exactly? That book was quite profound for me in the last few years. And I now have my shiny new book ideas in the back there where whenever I have a new idea, a decision I want to make, it ends up in the book and then I'll pull it out when I want to because
Mm.
this brain of ours is constantly going to come up with ideas, new things, decision on this, it can't stop. It just that's what it does. But I love Barbara's permission that when I read her book was that okay, I don't have to always choose. I can parking lot it, put it over here, come back to it when I'm ready to. So
Mhm.
that's one book that made a huge impact in my
Mm.
decision making process.
Yeah, she has a number of terrific books, and I think just the permission, just the title alone,
Yeah.
"Refuse to Choose." Like your life doesn't have to look like everybody else's. Your decisions don't all have to be good, but to the best of your ability and willingness, like be more present,
Mm-hmm.
not thinking about the past, not worrying about the future, but like, what's the best decision I can make right now? And can I commit to loving and accepting myself, however it turns out?
That's it.